stars are bright and the moon
Jack,
is low.
I'm going to tell you something that's on everybody's mind, and I'm asked this question frequently. Racing today, it's a show. It's not racing. You know, back in the day, 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, racing was racing. Now everything is manipulated, cookie cutter, TV oriented. They got to say the right things. They got to go to take a Dale Carnegie course. And now they're getting political, getting in politics about the Confederate flag. It's just on and on and on. And when I grew up in racing, I watched my father. I picked it up from him. And that was the furthest thing from his mind. He constantly worked on that race car. And when he wasn't doing that, he was delivering liquor. I mean, he was a bootlegger, a moonshiner, just like many others were back in those days,
Yep.
and a farmer. And I've always said whoever had the biggest farm or next to a big junkyard had an advantage on everybody else, because Honest Charlie was the only speed shop there were. And that didn't come into the late 40s. So what you did to that race car, you envisioned it yourself. You was your own engineer, and you made it just like you did these carburetors. You worked on it night and day. You went and tried it. If it didn't work, you come back and worked on it again. If you got outrun, you looked around, and maybe you could see what he was doing or wasn't doing, but you come home, went back to work on it. You didn't have 3/4 of your staff as engineers. You were your own engineer. You oversaw everything. You paid the bills, you spent the money, you hired your drivers. Your wife helped you do the books. You did it all. Now you look at it today. I know through the years you saw what went on, and then you begin to wind down. But people like, especially you and somewhat me, we, I think, are a dying breed. If you ain't got about 50 people per car and millions, about $18–25 million, you can't race today on the top tier level. Just what is your thoughts about what's taking place and what you see today? What happened?
Well, I guess it's just like I said for a long time. Big money finds a way to get in when things look good, and they usually end up getting in and I reckon you say overpowering them, because they got enough money to hire the people to do what they need to do. And I'm not, I'm not against that altogether, but it tends like Rick, Rouse, Childress, they definitely got the money to do what they need to do. And I guess it's one guy who has the most people. It looks like maybe they do the most development work and they get it done. You know, it's like got to have 4 cars to race. I just don't know. It's a little bit over my head what's happening here. It seems like to me racing looked like it's dying down a little bit. People are not as interested, because I think for one thing it's managed too tight. They take away all the ability of a person to use his imagination and do some things to the car that will help. They just overrule everything. It's got to be just like, it's got to be just alike. And I think that part really hurts racing a lot. I know they got to have a way to keep it under control, you might say, but I just think it's just too tight.
You think it'll ever get back to what it used to be?
I don't think it's going to get back. Yeah. I really don't.
I mean, you look in their stands and not fool no more.
If the stands are not full, that means the people are losing interest. Of course, the economy is not the best in the world now, so I reckon some of that is doing it also. When you put it all together, it's just going downhill. I know you have to have rules and regulations, or you can't keep order. But it seemed like they got everything just too tight. You got to have a little wiggle room to do some things, make it more interesting. If everybody's alike, then they're going to run nose to tail, you might say. And when you pit, you get your gas and tire, and you go back out, and you're still behind the same guy you went behind before. So there's no passing that you can see to tell for sure, unless the guy has a flat tire or the tire goes slack or something.
Yeah. You remember on TV, it used to be when they had pit stops, they went away to a commercial. Now the pit stops is the most exciting thing about the race.
I reckon you're right about that. It is.
I've noticed
and
that.
The pit stops are fabulous. It's unbelievable how fast they are.
Did you? Well, I know you worked in the pits doing different things to
Yeah.
the cars, and we didn't have all that headgear and
That's right.
all that
Radios
stuff.
and all that stuff. We had the old chalkboard and hand signals.
yeah. I changed right rear tire, gas, jack. I guess I've done it about all, and we never give it a second thought, did we?
Nope, nope.
Just get out there and do it.
Of course, they were smart enough not to run the races too long. You didn't have to do much.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So much of
Yeah.
that. You know, biggest race we won was 200 miles, and you usually could get through that pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just wondered what your opinion was, because coming from somebody like you, you got to pay attention because you've seen it all. And I guess the way that I did my shop, very similar to yours. You were ahead of the rest of us, and I guess you saw through the years things go up and things come back down.
Yep.
And there are no more, I guess, what is maybe a handful of independent engine builders for
That's
roundy
right.
round. Not many of them left.
That's right. Somehow or another, that got all changed. The engine builders is not an engine builder. You got guys doing the rods, you got guys doing the pistons, and you got the guys doing the cranks, and at the end you got a couple of guys or 2 or 3 guys in the big shop, maybe more, assembling them. You know, they don't have anything to do with the preparation, the rod preparation, pins, pistons, piston fitting. It's all put together, and it comes in there on a cart, and you put it together. So it's took away a lot of the independent engine builders.
And they got to have engineers to figure all of it out before it ever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they put on a
absolutely.
piece of paper drawing board before they do anything.
Right.
And you sit here and weld and hammered and grind it with a file and a grinder.
Yeah,
and
you
they
might
wouldn't
say,
do nothing
yeah.
like that at all. And now they use the CN machines to do their cylinder heads. You've got a place over there for doing head work with the porting tools.
Well, you know, I didn't always have all the equipment necessary to build engines when I first started out. I'll take a big block, for instance. You know, they come with these big domes on them. I used to get them from people like Wiseco and JE Pistons and maybe a couple of manufacturers. They'd come in here with an unfinished dome. Okay, you got to finish, especially on a big block, you got to finish that dome to fit the head.
Right.
So you had to, believe it or not, I used a body grinder, you know, with a fine disc. I used a belt sander. I put it in the lathe and done a little trimming with that. And then in the end, probably take me 2 days to get a set of big block
Right.
pistons ready to go.
They wouldn't do that today.
No. Now, they finally did end up figuring out how to do a lot of that for you, but you still had to do some finish work on that dome to get it to fit your head, because everybody's head was, one might be a little bit tighter than the other, or a little bit different configured. And that's, you had to spend, man, I've spent a couple of days fitting pistons on a big block to keep them from hitting, you know, and get them as close as you could to get the compression where you wanted.
And I'll bet you work some days 24 hours a day.
There's been a few all-nighters in my
Yeah,
life
and
that we had to
the
do.
guys today work an 8-hour shift and get paid a lot of money. Would you believe that crew chiefs now has got their own motor homes that come to the racetrack they stay in?
No, I didn't know that, but
Some
I
of 'em do.
imagine that though.
Some of them do. It's, you know, it's beyond me. If I had that much money, as they say, it takes to race a day, I wouldn't know where to start. I can't believe it takes that many people to run a race car. And we used to run 50-some races a year
You're right.
and do it with 2 or 3 people.
Yeah. It may be one car.
Yeah. When I worked for Pascal, he had 1 car. Isn't that something?
It's unreal.
And me and Frank Hayworth and Jim worked on the car. Run 50-some races that year. I think he finished 4th or 5th in a point, something like that. And but God, it's changed.
It took a lot of hard work and dedication.
Well, I don't remember it as work. I do not remember it as it being work. I enjoyed every minute. I
did
could not
too, yeah.
wait to get to that shop.
I've said this for a long time. I really don't believe that I'll ever, I don't look at it as work. It just was, I enjoyed it so much, I just kept on doing it.
And the guys you competed against You loved all of them. You liked
Right.
to get to the racetrack and see them. You get an argument now and then, but when you outrun them, it gave you that sense of being so proud of what this car had done. And you looked at that car and patted on the fender, and you're so tickled to death. But you might not be so lucky the next week. You went back home and worked a little bit hard. But I just wanted your opinion about the condition and what's taking place now with stock car racing compared to when you had your shop here and your people and you actively built cars and built engines and took it to the racetrack, brought them home either in one piece or many pieces, but you got the job done.
Just a lot of hard work and just love to do it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
How's that, partner?
An old Ford running on a red dirt road. The stars are bright and the moon is low. A revenue man coming up behind.